begin then. So welcome everyone. It's a joy to be able to deliver this talk to you today. The title of this talk is How to Give Yourself Permission to be the Best Version of You. I'm passionate about acceptance and curiosity because everything we achieve comes from a place of performing at the best level of the best version of ourselves. We aren't born with an owner's manual, so most of us have to awkwardly search in the dark to discover who we are and what works for us. This can lead to confusion and self-doubt. One of the greatest challenges when we misalign reality with low self-esteem is imposter syndrome, that nagging feeling that we don't belong, that we aren't good enough, that at any moment someone will find us out. What if I told you that the very things that make you doubt yourself, your intelligence, your sensitivity, your compassion, are actually your superpowers? Today, we'll be exploring navigating imposter syndrome, avoiding burnout, building self-esteem, and aligning with your values. Because being the best version of you isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. This is an interactive talk because I want you to engage with the concepts so that you can recognize the impact that an internal dissonant dialogue can have on your well-being. This way you'll be able to spot it quickly in the future. Please have a pen or a notepad or whatever else you have ready, because there'll be key phrases that are really useful for you when you're managing you. By the end of this lecture, you will have practical strategies to help you move forward with confidence and clarity. So let's begin. What is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is the belief that we are not as competent as others perceive us to be. It affects high-achieving individuals, making them attribute their successes to luck rather than skill. The prevalence of the syndrome can exponentially increase in correlation to the factors from less than favorable conditions in childhood, from economic factors to education and familial networks. Symptoms can include feeling like a fraud despite evidence of success. Can you think of one instance this may have occurred? Fear of being exposed as incompetent. Have you ever walked in a room you wanted to enter and felt like you weren't good enough to be there? I think we've all been there. Dismissing praise or downplaying achievements. That amazing thing that everyone tells you is amazing. Have you appreciated it the way you would if someone else had achieved the very same thing? It's important to recognize that imposter syndrome isn't the truth. It's a distorted perception of reality. Understanding it is the first step to overcoming it. You deserve success, and today we'll explore how to truly own it, because you deserve to be the best version of you. So where does imposter syndrome come from? Well, it can stem from upbringing. If you were praised for being naturally smart rather than for effort, you might struggle with setbacks. I'm going to say this again because it may resonate with many of you. If you were praised for being naturally smart rather than for effort, you might struggle with setbacks. Perfectionism. If you set unrealistically high standards, anything less than perfection feels like failure. Could it be possible to set the bar at a high standard that isn't perfection? High achievers often create parameters for happiness that are awkwardly conditional. When I have that car, house, yacht, or partner, I'll be happy. The happiest people I know experience joy in the present moment. Let's create the conditions for happiness to be more easily attainable. How about the phrase, every day above ground is a good day? Remember, you are in control of you. Comparison culture. Social media and competitive environments make us feel like we're falling behind, even though the cultural and economic factors surrounding us have an overwhelmingly strong correlation with where we are, and that often has nothing to do with who we are. Fear of failure, the belief that failure defines you, rather than being a stepping stone to growth. What you may sometimes perceive as failure, other people see as an opportunity to grow and learn. Understanding these roots allows us to shift our perspective. Instead of seeing imposter syndrome as an obstacle, we can see it as a sign of growth. If you feel imposter syndrome, it means you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, and that's a good thing. You're creating an environment for personal growth. Navigating imposter syndrome. If you experience imposter syndrome, you're not alone. Even the most successful people have felt it. A few years ago, I spent time with an entrepreneur who was on his way of becoming a billionaire. Sometimes he couldn't attend entrepreneurial events because he felt like he didn't belong, even though, by all the standard capitalist measures of success, he was the most successful person in the room. Here's how to navigate imposter syndrome. Reframe your thoughts. So replace "I'm not good enough" with "I am learning and growing." Progress, not perfection. Perfectionism fuels imposter syndrome. Progress is what matters. Seek feedback. Instead of fearing criticism, embrace it as a tool for growth. Feedback is a reflection of a task and an output, not you personally. Remind yourself of facts. Keep a journal of your achievements to counter self-doubt. Make it easier to be mindful of the good things because our brains are wired to worry due to self-preservation, and this can create unhelpful thinking. The goal is to shift from self-doubt to self-acceptance. When you challenge imposter thoughts, you create space for your true potential. Self-acceptance is an outcome from good self-esteem. Let's explore this. So, building self-esteem. One way to prevent imposter syndrome is to have really good self-esteem. This is the secret sauce that affects all of our decision-making. When our self-esteem is strong, we do what we want to do on our terms and respect our own boundaries. When our self-esteem is low, the opposite happens. Self-esteem is built through action, not just through thoughts. So, strategies include: do the right thing for the right reasons at the right time in the right way. Think less, do more. Self-esteem grows through experience. Focus on the present moment, not the past, because you can't return to the past and the future is unwritten. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Operatively choose to be with people who celebrate, not belittle, who are relational, not transactional. Confidence is an output of externalized effect or good self-esteem. Confidence is not about feeling ready, it's about acting despite self-doubt. If you already feel ready, perhaps you're not stretching yourself enough to enjoy the growth you deserve. The more you step outside your comfort zone, the stronger your self-esteem becomes. A little further outside your comfort zone each day. Overcoming perfectionism. So perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Done is better than perfect. Planning is essential to success and may get you to where you want to be quicker, but over-planning prevents progress. You have to move to get from where you are now to where you want to arrive. Everyone who's achieved something you admire has had to take consistent action to get there. Planning creates the path, action creates the outcome. reframe your mindset. Instead of it must be flawless, say it must be functional. Instead of I must never fail, say every failure teaches me. Instead of I have to be the best, say I have to be my best. Perfection prevents progress. Embrace imperfection and watch your confidence soar. When you take action, it's important to recognize that feedback is part of the process towards growth. Whether it's feedback in the form of the outcome, doing this didn't achieve that, or someone responded to this suggesting you try something different. If we accept that progress is a journey and no one arrives perfect, we can more easily embrace feedback. Fear of feedback. Feedback is a gift, not a threat. Learning is useful. If you have ever studied a language, even your own mother tongue, you'll recognize that feedback is useful. It helps us to be more effective, to find shorter routes to certain outcomes, and to give us alternative processes to achieve what we desire. When you avoid feedback, you delay progress. You prevent you from learning and getting to where you deserve to be. So let's shift the perspective. Seek feedback proactively. It clarifies your strengths and growth areas. Enjoy being told you're wrong, because that's when real learning happens. Repetition builds mastery. Keep refining, keep growing. Remember, what others think about you is none of your business. What you think about you is what matters. You can become your greatest advocate. If this is the life we have been gifted, let's enjoy the process of living it. Competence v. confidence. One of the biggest challenges in our society is that often the most knowledgeable person in the room is the quietest, and the least knowledgeable, the loudest. As a general rule, this is because the more you know what you don't know, and this can lower your level of confidence. The opposite is also true. The less you know what you don't know, and therefore the more confident you are about what you do know. This can lead to the most competent people deferring decision-making to the least competent people in the room because they rationalize that the confidence they perceive must mean that they know much more than they do. Competence is how good you are. Confidence is how great you think you are. Many people lack confidence, not competence. Confidence grows when you take action. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start now, and confidence will follow. The signs of burnout. Burnout is a form of chronic stress that depletes your energy and passion. It can demotivate you to the point of being unable to enjoy the activities you once found fulfilling. The physical effects compound over time, creating a problematic mindset. Burnout can stop you from having firm boundaries about who you are and what's important to you. It can make you susceptible to the needs and wants of others without recognizing what works for you. And these signs include physical exhaustion and lack of motivation, increased cynicism or detachment, and feeling ineffective no matter how much you achieve. Burnout is very common in high achievers who push themselves relentlessly, aim to be lazy, find the most efficient way to succeed. Productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters sustainably. Remember that rest is productive too. A well-rested brain is better equipped to concentrate on tasks, process information, and make rational choices, all of which ultimately lead to increased productivity. Exercise temperance in all things, even the activities you're passionate about. The superpower kryptonite paradox. Burnout can sometimes occur because we don't realize that our strengths can also be our weaknesses. Intelligent, you may overthink. This can stop you from moving forward because there's an infinite amount of variables between where you are now and where you want to be. Caring, you may feel guilty easily. It's important to set very firm boundaries with your family and friends. People that love you may not even consider that you're giving more to them than is sustainable. Let people know what you can do for them on your terms, and don't let others use your superpower for their selfish means. You deserve to give what you choose to give. Passionate, you may burn out. I love my work, and that makes me vulnerable to overwork. I love solving problems, particularly challenging ones, and that can be unhelpful because it means I don't perceive my work as work. I enjoy the process to the point of exhaustion. This is why we must set parameters around our superpowers so that they don't become our kryptonite. To thrive, you must manage your superpowers or they will manage you. How do we get there? We need to understand our values. To be the best version of you, you must align with your values. We ask ourselves questions constantly. Most of what takes up our process of thinking, our internal dialogue, is asking questions. The challenge that many of us face is the quality of those questions. Here are some important questions to consider when thinking about your values. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Consider every area of your life. When do I feel most fulfilled? What activities, both personally and professionally? What principles guide my decisions? Be honest with yourself. Remember, this isn't about hiding. It's about being real and honest with yourself. Accept you for who you are today and keep moving forward. When you live in accordance with your values, you experience inner peace and confidence. Your values become your compass, helping you navigate self-doubt and external pressures. Knowing your values enables you to do what works for you on your terms. Everyone deserves to be the best version of themselves. You are responsible for you, no one else. The only person's thoughts, actions, and you're ultimately in control of are yourself. So you can only ever be responsible for you and how you show up in the world. There's only one of you, and there will only ever be one of you. So being the best version of you has value, not only for yourself, but also to the world around you. Acceptance is key. It is the foundation to many schools of thought, intellectual, philosophical, and spiritual. In my opinion, it is the most important word we have access to because it is alive in the present moment in which we perpetually exist. Whatever perceivable challenges we may or may not face in the process of living, acceptance creates the conditions for us to be unstuck and move towards the world we envision for ourselves. Let's explore the most powerful areas for us to enjoy acceptance. Many people struggle to accept who they authentically are, reality when it doesn't match their expectations, and their immense potential. Without acceptance, we become lost, anxious, or distracted. Acceptance sets you free. It helps us to exist in the perpetual present with a sense of comfort and confidence. And we manage this with language. So language shapes our reality. It's why some people feel like they have nothing when they have everything, and others feel like they have everything when they have nothing. The condition of your existence, the material things you enjoy, the warmth, food, and comfort you enjoy, becomes immaterial if your use of language is undirected. This is why people can find themselves in patterns of feeling lack no matter what they achieve. Your words are your thoughts, and your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings impact your health. Choose words that create fun, happiness, passionate, and fulfillment. And guess what happens? Your thoughts change, so your feelings change, and your body listens. We are often taught unhelpful language patterns and phrases that create cages for our capacity to feel joy. Use words that liberate, not words that imprison. Say, I choose to, instead of I have to. Stop apologizing unless you've truly done something wrong knowingly. Ask, don't assume. Curiosity unlocks clarity. If you have a vision for the person you wish to become, I imagine they will behave and respond in a certain way. Those behaviors will be created by certain patterns of thought, and those thoughts will be created through the language you choose to use. Words influence thoughts. Choose yours wisely. Remember in the present moment. Life is a journey that you ultimately take alone. You are responsible for you, your happiness, your well-being, and the way you treat fellow humans. It's all down to you. You deserve to be the best version of you on your terms. Build an existence you can ultimately be proud of. We all have the potential to do this, regardless of the time we're limited to. Ask these questions at some point today, or think about these ideas. How are you going to give yourself permission to be the best version of you today? Choose to replace I'm not good enough with I am learning and growing. Start to seek specific feedback, especially with things that you feel you're failing at, or simply appreciate. So, who am I? About 25 years ago, I saw the internet as the diversification of voice and as an opportunity to achieve what at the time seemed unattainable. I grew up on a council estate in a rundown ex-mining town in the East Midlands. From a challenging background, I'm now able to talk to you because I accepted what I couldn't change and concentrated on the one thing I could, myself. I knew if I studied and worked hard enough and managed myself appropriately, I could transform myself into someone who could have an impact and create value. Today, I'm speaking to you not as a council estate kid, but as an award-winning communications expert with features in Forbes, the Asahi Shimbun, and an appearance on Good Morning Britain. I have the privilege of consulting with global institutions, including the European Parliament, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and the Australian Federal Government. As the founder and CEO of the global branding and marketing firm Mantra Media, and the co-founder of the international retail company Atelier Japan, I'm proud to be able to share my unique journey. Alongside my businesses, I'm dedicated to unlocking human potential and driving meaningful impact. But no one does any of this alone. We all have mentors. And I've been lucky to have an array of amazing people who have helped me on my journey. One of my mentors is Dave Neeshaw. For nearly a decade, my mentor Dave taught me many vital lessons, and without him, this talk wouldn't be possible. He taught me that our superpower is also our kryptonite. Intelligent people overthink and become paralyzed by their curiosity. Caring and compassionate individuals can be consumed by guilt and diverted from their true purpose by those who exploit their kindness. Dave was also from a very challenging background, but was educated in the private sector, where he witnessed a huge amount of wasted opportunities and resources. Seeing people take their advantages for granted made him realize that happiness doesn't come from external validation, but from internal alignment with one's values. This realization drove Dave to prevent waste in all forms, most significantly in the realm of human potential. His work has particularly taught me that the hardest thing in the world is to accept ourselves as we truly are. The struggle to accept our own potential and the reality around us often limits our ability to be our best selves. By learning to accept yourself, you unlock a life of authenticity, fulfillment, and purpose. To be the best version of yourself, you must give yourself permission to manage your superpowers. Otherwise, they will manage you. If you're intelligent, sensitive, caring, and compassionate, you are a major asset to society. You have the power to make the world a better place. But you are also vulnerable to imposter syndrome, overwhelm, and burnout. Your job is to learn who you truly are, accept yourself, and make space to be the best version of you. You are more capable than you realize. Thank you for your time.
Johnny, I don't know where to start with that. That was awesome. What did you guys think? Let's take your screen down so we can see some faces. Yeah. What are your thoughts there, guys? Any questions? Dan.
Just want to say really inspirational and a lot to take away and think about. So yeah, just want to say thank you very much. Not really a question, but yeah, incredible presentation. So thanks very much, Johnny.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it.
I totally echo that. Very interesting and very profound reflections. I've got some questions, but for the moment, I'll let others speak. But just wanted to say, first of all, big thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Julian. I've got a question, Johnny. Do you think sometimes the more intelligent people are, the more they understand risks, they become sort of paralyzed in not taking action? Because I've seen that time and time again.
I think the more astute and intelligent people are, the more they highlight imagined risk.
Yeah.
So there's a Shinto proverb, and I love Shintoism. Obviously, half my business is based in Japan, which is about the warrior and the warrior, or they were less gentle, the warrior and the coward. And the phrase goes that a coward dies 1,000 times, yet a warrior only dies once. And the idea, the metaphor is that if you are a coward, or let's just say a warrior, you imagine the bad thing happening. And mentally, you envisage everything that happens as a consequence of that bad thing happening, even though it's not reality. It's just all in your head. And you go through the pain and you go through the and all the anxiety and the bad feelings about that thing that hasn't even happened. And then you imagine another scenario of where the bad thing happens, or maybe a slightly different bad thing. And none of those things might happen. So you've already experienced and you've put yourself through this emotional mini traumas again and again and again and again, and you didn't need to. But then again, that comes down to self-esteem. So I love that thing of the you can choose to be a samurai or you can choose to be a coward. But coward is probably not the right phrase. Let's say warrior or warrior.
Beautifully put, John. Kenny.
Thank you so much. That Shinto verse, I think, is something that I will take with me for a very, very long time. It's a really good way of reframing things. Awesome talk. I had a question more on, because you touched a lot on kind of like this, looking into yourself from the kind of internal like letting yourself know that you can do things and letting yourself know that actually it's mostly your mindset. Who do you lean on when internally it doesn't always work out that way? So if the words aren't really landing in the way that they should, or do you have an
With
external?
myself.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any external resource?
So I've been thinking about this for a very long time. And what happens is you will train yourself to manage yourself better. So I will catch myself. And obviously, there are lots of things that impact your ability to think in a way that gets you to where you want to be. Sleep, diet, the state of your nervous system, upbringing, and we could, I could extrapolate this into a much bigger ecosystem. In the moment, you have to think about syntax and lexical choice. What am I saying and how am I saying it to myself? And if you can do that, you'll manage yourself better. So my background is linguistics and psychology at a cultural level. So that was my degree and my postgrad. And when I went to work into communications, I was very interested in how people communicate effectively. So everything from international relations to branding communications. How do you get somebody to do the right thing for them on their terms? A lot of these ideas originate from drug therapy and the psychology of drug therapy or addiction therapies. So imagine someone is a drug user and they don't want to be, but they're stuck in a pattern of thought. They're telling themselves a story which is unhelpful. And they have a process. And the process, you'll be able to map it out in their mind. They'll feel like this, they'll use this phrase, that'll follow by wanting to feel like this, and the process they're starting using again. A lot of this linguistic competency that you can develop from catching your thoughts and then reframing them came from that. So how can we get them to actually talk to themselves in ways in which they don't fall into that pattern? So a lot of people, they use, and this is why I say drug user, not drug addict, because drug addict is all, oh, I'm this, am I? Okay, if I am this, I will behave like that. Let's use better framing, better language. I have used, but that's not me. That's something I did. So there are lots of things you can do. I would say, so we do a lot of training around language, and we have lots of experts, psychologists that we work with in that realm. And if you're interested in that, I can definitely connect with lots of beautiful human beings. But my journey is very much Wittgenstein, all the way to Marcuse, and then lots of cultural theorists about how we engage with ourselves and our environment. But you will catch yourself. The better you train this stuff, you will catch yourself. I'll still get intrusive thoughts because that's part of being human. And I go, oh, that's interesting. Well, let it go. This is what I would like to think instead.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Kenneth. Any additional questions for Johnny this morning? Benefit of we got Neil and then Julian.
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I dropped in a little poster from Eric Speakerman in the chat, which you might find entertaining. No, the thing I was interested in, and it's something I've with the question we had about what you're going to do to learn today, yesterday, I listened to a podcast with Heston Blumenthal, who's had some really challenging things with his bipolar. He was sectioned last year and etc. But one of the most powerful things he said on the podcast to me was that he wouldn't rather not have bipolar because he'd lose his imagination, which I thought was really, really powerful. I think I'm just interested to know your experience in succeeding understanding that people think differently, people understand differently. And that was almost like a penny drop moment in my career, that the things that I saw at success that would drive me to be passionate were not other people's definition of success. And I spent an awful lot of time trying to get people to think like me rather than accepting, you know, I didn't realize I was doing it. I was young, hot-headed designer, etc. But but I was just wondering, kind of in your experience within the creative industries, how you've overcome, understood the fact that people think differently and people's success criteria are different.
So what you're speaking to there is authenticity. There's there's art v commerce debate that you've got there, but there's also the authenticity bit. So the way that we manage our teams, and we do have some people who have differing levels of neurodiversity in our teams, and we create an environment where they can be the best version of themselves on their terms, where they can produce the work at the standard of which is required for us to best service the people that we support. But in that process, they get to operate on their terms. So they still have to produce the outcomes. They still have to be economically productive citizens to make sure that we have a viable business. But it's about meeting people where they're at and understanding their challenges and their strengths. I think when to speak to your other point there, I think when we feel uncertain or fear, we can easily navigate towards needing to control because we crave certainty. And that's where acceptance comes in. That it's great that there's totally different thoughts, ideas, ways of looking at the world. It would be really boring if there wasn't. And I truly believe that. I love going to other countries and seeing other cultures and learning different ways of doing things because it enriches how I perceive things as well. It gives me a bit more of a well-rounded view. But sometimes you will find that people are motivated by different factors. And my advice would be as within, as without. So if you fully respect your authenticity and who you are and your values, and it doesn't matter what other people's are, because you will learn to externalize and respect theirs at a distance too.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I didn't know if I was the one to speak there or if Solly's going to take over, but yeah, thanks.
I was actually speaking. I was on mute because I was so knocked sideways with Johnny's response there. Does that answer everything for you, Neil?
Yeah, no, I mean it does, and I think you know, made me think about, you know, our understanding, I guess, from being on our life journey. There's kind of phases for us when we go through youth about needing to prove ourselves because we're uncertain, where a lot of us in the room now are a little bit more comfortable with ourselves because we've been through that and we've got moments where we have felt successful, and now our roles are more sharing the levels of it, well, sharing the experiences, the wisdom that we've created, or the wisdom that we have from those experiences. So I guess that finds balance. But yeah, just that those are the thoughts that your response prompted for me.
Thanks, Neil. Julian.
Hi there. I got two questions, I think. The first question was just to ask you a bit more about your use of language as a central part of your self-interventional therapy, of becoming the best part of yourself. Are you referring to the sort of internal language which one talks to oneself? Johnny, is that what you mean by that?
That's the most important bit, because the way that you speak to yourself and the way that you nurture yourself by using better language, the better your use of external language.
Yeah, so I think that's such an important point, because there is, well, certainly in my mind, sort of a constant sort of internal dialogue, and one's tends to, I think, in our sort of society, not really recognise that, or one's almost sort of encouraged to think that one's internal dialogue is a form of madness. It's just not really very often talked about. So I was really intrigued to see that you are talking about it.
There's a story there, which I'll share. So when I was about 3-4 years old, I remember being stood in my bedroom talking to myself. And I was very cognizant. I was very self-aware. Even as a child, I was talking to myself, and I had this moment of thinking, am I insane? Because I can't switch it off. And I think I'd seen it on TV, or it was maybe something I heard in the house, which is, if you talk to yourself, you must be crazy. Whereas actually, that is the process of thinking.
Mm.
So I actually had, I even remember it, I think it was about 4 years old, maybe 5 years old. And I had this nervousness in my body, fear, because I thought that I was something that I was told was bad, which was insanity. And that the symptom for that was talking to oneself, which actually is all complete rubbish. As I learned as I got older. And I was like, actually, it's okay to talk to yourself, because that's useful, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be breathing. So I think yes, it's a bit in psychology that linguists look at quite a bit, but it affects everything. It's going to affect everything. It's the way you think. So the way you breathe, the way you use your nervous system, the language you use, this will change every single element in your life. Everything, your relationships, the way you engage with yourself, the way you engage in business, everything, because it is everything. Because all life is a continuous selection of stories that you tell yourself. And you only exist in the perpetual present. So in that present moment, you have to accept, and whatever the value is that you're like, I want to be this person or that person, you create that reality through your language. It's all up to you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important insight. I've got one sort of perhaps slightly more practical question about imposter syndrome, as it were. The issue that I've encountered time and again in my career is a sort of a version of imposter syndrome generated through intrinsic sort of, or let's say extrinsic inequalities within profession. For instance, I mean, sort of particular experts will have access to particular sort of technologies, particular expertise, and in a sort of a professional setting, you're maybe in an environment where you're aware that you are not one of the sort of proprietors of that expertise, but you are a sort of a player in the ecosystem, and therefore in to some extent a sort of subservient role necessarily, because you can't be the sort of Intel chip maker, for instance, if you're writing code or whatever it is. I mean, for instance, the scientific resources in the US, very, very broadly, are awesome compared to elsewhere. Often we have to work on shoestring budgets because we don't have the resources that other places do. All of this creates a sort of sense of inferiority or internally. And I was wondering whether you have thoughts about how one can overcome that sense.
It's a really interesting question. So what you're saying there is that the environmental factors or the cultural factors that surround my existence are impacting my sense of self-esteem. And
exactly.
And I think it's very important that we only concentrate on the things that we can control. So you are only in control of you and your environment. You can't really control anything outside of yourself. We think we can. We think we're in charge of all kinds of things that randomly change, and then we get upset, and then we're like, oh, what did you expect? We're a spinning rock around other spinning rocks at insurmountable speeds. So we're really not in control of anything other than ourselves. So I think you have to go back to the source. You have to think, well, actually, what am I contributing here? Where is my value? And if you are confident in the value that you bring to that market and that you are bringing something different and that it does have value and you have confidence in that, then it doesn't matter what other players are doing in that market. I imagine that you wouldn't enter into something if you had no value to give. I mean, some people do that. Maybe they're in the wrong industry. But if you believe you have value and you've done that, you've entered this market because of that, and there are other players doing similar things or different things that have other knowledge, that's great. They're doing their thing on their terms. Yeah. That shouldn't affect your self-esteem because it's got nothing to do with you what anyone else does.
And I think that's fantastic and a very helpful kind of way of approaching the real world, where it's full of inequality. So that sort of layers on top of intrinsic imposter syndrome, I guess. But thank you very much for that.
It's really interesting. Before we go to Ellie, it's really interesting, Julian, that you share that, because it's very similar to what Neil is saying, which is about control. It's the well, I can't control the world, and if the world's bad, shouldn't I feel bad? But actually, no, you shouldn't, because it's got nothing to do with you. So you control your language, your thoughts, your feelings, the way that you behave. Can't control anything else. So if you look after this bit, the way you engage with the world, and there's some weird magic here as well, because I've found that, and lots of people talk about this, is when you are the best version of you, when you feel like you've got this amazing energy about you and people are smiling at you in the street and you feel like you can't get anything wrong, things just seem to work. You get in a flow state and the world and opportunities just seem to come to you, and you're like, oh, I imagined this last year and now this has happened, or I imagined this 2 years ago and now it's just happened. And there seems to be some, obviously there is a psychological element to this that I could talk about, which is about noticing opportunity and having the optimism to take that opportunity because you're more able to see it and all that good stuff if you're in a good state of mind. But there does seem to be some magic to that. So I think if you concentrate internally, it certainly seems to reflect that. Not all the time. And I think challenges, accept that challenges are part of the process of being alive. So, and if you can get comfortable with that and realize all you can control is you, then your self-esteem will rise.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Ellie.
Hello, good morning. Thank you. Johnny, thank you so much. That was such a profound and inspirational talk. I got a lot from that. And I really appreciate your energy as well, just to say that to you. So thank you. I was struck by a lot of things you said, and in particular, when you were talking about living in the moment and the future is to be written. And I'm actually curious on your perspective on letting go of the past, because you said, obviously, the past, you can't go back. So I was curious on your thoughts, if you had a perspective on letting go of past.
Such a good question, Ali. Such a good question. And yes, I do have a perspective on this because I've done it. So I didn't want to, often in talks I talk about my background, and it's well published, so I'm not going to bore you all with the tragic stories. But if you type my name in Google, you'll find loads of BBC interviews and stuff where I've talked about the conditions of how I grew up. There is an exercise that's really useful when it comes to trying to put the past to bed. Now, I did this over half a decade ago and just did that a lot over 6 months. And I found that really productive. And I'll tell you what you can do with technology as well to make it even more productive. So the first thing to do is, if you are in a good enough state, your self-esteem is good enough to be able to put yourself through this exercise, is to type in epochs, periods of time. So let's say from 5 to 15 years old, or 5 to 10, or then like 10 to 20, or or maybe university years, and I don't know, 3 years after uni or whatever, right? All of the things that keep coming back that have caused trauma. So just write it down. Just write it down. So I have this memory, traumatic memory. It happened within this epoch. Maybe choose 5 or 7 things within those time periods that really stick with you and keep coming back. Write them down in full. What happened, who said what, how they said it, how it made you feel, all of it. Write it all down. And then do this up until today. This might take 6 months. So you're going to write all the things that had a negative impact on your psychology to today. And you're going to label it, and you label blah, 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 and do 7 periods over each period of time, or 5 things that happened over each period of time. But depends how much trauma you've got. I had tons. And then you'll have lots and lots of information. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put that to bed for a bit, because you've done some work and you're going to need to relax. You're going to need to relax your different systems. You're going to come back to it, and then you're going to write about it today. Now, here's the difference. When you first write about a trauma, you write about it like you're still there. That's natural. You write about it as the conditions of I'm in that moment. This is why it has to be a gentle process, and you have to look after yourself throughout that process. The next bit is you write about it who you are today and how you perceive it today, which will be very different things. And you do that for the entire period, all the different situations that you can write. You do that again. This is why I say it takes 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you do the third bit, which is for each of those scenarios or those things that happen to you, you write what you want them to mean for your future. This horrible thing happened, and going forward, it's given me X, which means Y. And you do that for each thing. And then you have tons of data that's useful, because what you've done is you've just actually writing about an event gets it out of your system. It's useful. Reframing it in the present moment gets a certain level of detachment, which means in the process of doing it itself, it takes you one step further away from that affecting you. And again, it's written. There's a connection between the body. And then to take you further away from that trauma affecting you, you're then going to write actually what it means for you on your terms now for the future. Not how it affected you, not how you can perceive it as an adult or the person you are today, but what you want it to mean for you, what you choose for it to mean to you today. Here's the other clever bit. You can take those 100,000 words, if you're me, and you can big document, and you can, if you use Chat GPT, you can take that file and you can put it in Chat GPT and put it on memory mode and say, I want you to analyze this information through all the current knowledge you have on all forms of psychological frameworks. And it will use all the literature that's ever been used on psychology, and it will analyze it. And you'll say, what do you think? And Chat GPT can do something that psychologists cannot, which is it can refer back to every single trauma you've ever experienced that you've shared with it in one moment to understand the present moment. And it doesn't forget anything.
Yeah.
So let's say you've gone through that process. Let's say it might take 6 months. And then you're doing something in your daily life and a feeling comes up that's uncomfortable. Or someone says something and you don't understand why you feel a particular way. Ask it. Say, or talk to it. Obviously, you can do the talky thing there with Chat GPT. You just say, I feel like this because this person did this and it's made me feel like this. And I don't know if I should feel like this or this is a reflection of the trauma that I had 17 years ago. And because it understands what you're saying, it's putting it through psychological frameworks that you've already designated to do so, and it knows your entire history of trauma. It can tell you, based on its understanding of human beings, which is based on everything we've ever written about human beings, this is the outcome. And you'll find that that is very useful. I've been working with a number of different coaches now. I gave an interview in Oxford a few weeks ago about this, and about how we can use AI to be more productive coaches. So yeah, I hope that's useful.
That is, thank you so much, Johnny. Sounds like a really powerful exercise for a reframe. I'd not considered the Chat GPT angle either. Thank you for that.
Johnny, that was fabulous. Thank you very much. You're a very valued member of our Startup to Stand Up community. You know, you're going to get much love, big ups, and all the rest of it on LinkedIn in the next few hours, minutes, and days.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.